One of the lessons I've learned in 14 years is how giving and receiving are the same. I grew up in a village, and as I was growing up, I can't tell you how many times I felt that development was being done on me as opposed to with me. And so when I went back home and it was my turn to do development with the people, I thought, I really have to search my own mindset. I really have to look at what is it that I don't want to repeat, or what is it that I don't want to do, as opposed to what do I want to do. So I've learned a lot in the process. That's me with my dad peeking at me. And then that's me with my husband kissing on me. There are 5 million pictures of David kissing on my head, so that should be very familiar. But even though I do girls' education, I know that girls' education cannot work without boys. And I was raised by wonderful and supported by wonderful men. So returning to my village to do development meant that I had to search my own mindset. And what I thought was, why is it that you come to a village and you dig a well, or you build a borehole, or you start a project, and then it fizzles out and dies? What is it about a disconnect that happens that after a few years, no matter what the niceties were, they have passed over and everything dies? And this every Gambian will recognize. This is a picture from the vantage point of a Westerner in the Gambia that came to do development. Somehow when people leave the West and are going to Africa or to the Gambia, people would say to them, oh, they need pens and they need educational materials and they love candy. And so these tourists would be on these tourist trucks throwing pens, candy, money at the kids. And when I thought about that, I thought, how sad for the kids, but how even sadder for the person throwing the stuff at the people, right? Because if you're throwing stuff at me, your humanity is immediately lost. I could have just called this talk heart to heart instead of pocket to pocket. But I chose giving and receiving are the same. But really, if you look at this picture, you know that then the children will grow up seeing you as a pocket instead of as a human being who has their own struggles, who worked hard for their money, who has a heart and a family, and who's just like them, right? So there's an immediate disconnect. The opposite of that is this young man I just spent time with just a week ago. He was in the Gambia with a group, and we were looking at water projects in the remote villages. And when we got there, everybody that he was with was taking pictures of the different things. And Luke instead took out wet wipes and started wiping the faces of the kids. And he whispered to me, oh, Yassin, why is it that everybody's just taking pictures? Why are they not wiping the faces of the kids and their hands before taking pictures of them? Because if they were their own kids, they would have cleaned them up before taking pictures of them. So as Luke is saying that to me, there are some old men sitting behind me who don't speak any English. And in the local languages, one of the old men was saying, look at this young man. He's a real human being. He sees us as people, and he loves us as people. He is really what a human being should be like, right? So that's one thing. And then I don't want this to be a pitch, so let's just move to typical Yassin and keep it real. If you do these things, you're not doing anybody a favor. I don't want anybody to be thinking, oh, that's so sweet of Luke, and just stopping there. These are two young women, Madeleine Kujabi on the left, Alexander on the right. Now, when they were in middle school, they were in the Gambia. Alexander had come with her family to do some work at Starfish. When you look at them and you look years later, if you had to guess who is doing service on what continent, you would probably be wrong if you're stereotypical. Alexander on the right actually came back to the Gambia after she finished Boston College and came to serve at Starfish. Madeleine Kujabi is in North Carolina getting her MA in Peace and Conflict Studies with a concentration in Sustainable Peace and Justice at UNC Greensboro. So if you think about their service profile, Alexander is in the Gambia, and then now she just moved to Bulgaria to do service. And Madeleine is actually in the US, very far from the community that she was born and grew up in. So as you think about investments in service and in giving back, the world is so small that you should think whoever you think you're serving might end up being very close to you, your children, and your background. And so what you want to do is see them as people and have them feel the humanity in you so that when they start influencing your children and the chickens come home to roost, it's a good experience. So this is Fatoumata Jaita. She's actually in the audience. She came to us in middle school, but then she's now at Brandeis, also getting her master's in sustainable international development. Now, if you look at the last 2 years she has spent around these children look very different from the children we have in the Gambia, right? Which means if you threw candy at her and threw money at her and she didn't see you as a person, when she's in a position to influence people that look like you, she's not going to see them as people. Your humanity was lost to her. Your humanity is still lost to her. It is inevitable that these children would be looking at who she is as a person and what qualities she carries. And with every interaction with every human being, we influence those qualities in terms of how they see us and how we see them. This is Mariama. She is also, I love this little girl picture of her. She is also in the audience, so you can talk to both of them. Mariama is actually getting a dual master's in peace and conflict resolution with human rights and international law as minors. Again, if you look at her and you look at her work, even though she was born in a village in Africa, her work is actually in Massachusetts. When I used to teach English in Kentucky, I used to tell them, this classroom does not look like your great-grandparents' classroom. Because if somebody had told you that a girl from the Gambia, West Africa, whose first language is not English, will be teaching you expository writing in Western Kentucky, you wouldn't believe it, right? And so you think about influence, you think about person to person, heart to heart, instead of pocket to pocket. But then beyond just heart to heart, pocket to pocket, let's look at an area of abundance. When we think about giving, who we think we're giving to, what do we see when we look at them? So when you look at that picture, the only difference between me and these girls is that I have more maths and English. They have a lot of education just like I do. It's the literacy that might be different. But when I look at that picture, when I see the beads, when I see the cloths, when I see the tattoos on their feet, which you can't see, I see abundance. I see their strength, and I definitely see business, because they can be supported to market their beading, to market their work and their heritage, right? But if you look at them and you think, oh, poor kids in the bush that I need to help, then that limits not only what you put on them, but what you put on yourself, because you don't have to carry all the work. When I work in communities, I tell them, you survived before I showed up, and you're going to keep surviving. I didn't come to a community and everybody was dead. They were surviving, they were having kids, they were having families. So when you think about that, you have to think, am I the one that is limited in my thinking, or are these the people that don't have? I love this picture. This picture is of my sister friend, Guya. And when you look at this picture, I chose this one because they couldn't look any more different, right? But then when you closely look at it, you can see that this is a picture of daughters and their mother, aunties and their nieces. And so I want you to think about how, with a connection like this, these girls would never look at a woman that is blonde and not feel a connection as family because of the heart connection they have, right? So her humanity is assured in the hearts of these girls, right? And to do that, she had to come to us. There's no way she could have sent a check and then these girls would feel as connected as you see in this picture. And that's really it. Whatever community we're serving, we cannot serve them at a distance and really gain as much as was meant for us to gain. You would be at a loss if you don't have African American friends, Asian friends, European friends, different friends that you know well enough to be in their homes, to name your children after them, and to have them name their children after you. Let's keep it real and think about how we are connected as human beings beyond what we have around us. And when we say friendship and service, we really need to get into the hearts of the people that we serve. I don't want to be a preacher, never wanted to, but I find myself always telling people, this is what I experience, why don't you come and experience it with me? But as I work hard in this field of service, I keep thinking about how I wouldn't have had these perspectives if other people hadn't come and interacted with me and made mistakes with me and learned from them with me. So I don't stand on this stage claiming to have a truth that you don't have. This is not mine, this is ours. It is from our collective wisdom, insights, and encouragement that I have been able to learn the lessons that I was able to learn to be able to share it here. So I stand here as a representative of not just my experiences, but our collective experiences. And this is one of my favorite quotations. It says, "And the honor and distinction of the individual consists in this, that he, among all the world's multitudes, should become a source of social good. Is any bounty conceivable than this? That an individual looking at himself should find that by the confirming grace of God, he has become, she has become, the cause of peace and well-being, of happiness and advantage to his fellow men and women. No, by the one true God, there is no greater bliss, nor more complete delight." As we watch our struggles, as you think about loneliness, as you think about stress, as you think about body image issues, as you think about depression, think about a more complete bliss and delight. And if you don't remember anything else from my talk, what I would like you to remember is one of my favorite quotations, which is very short, which says, "The betterment of the world can be accomplished through pure and goodly deeds." What I love about this quotation is that it doesn't stop with just pure and goodly deeds. Your deeds can be pure and goodly, but through commendable and seemly conduct. So you want to donate money, you want to help, you want to do this, you want to do that. That's a pure and goodly deed. But in which way do you do it? How do you do it? Is the way you do it commendable, and is it seemly? Would somebody else recommend it, and would it make a difference in the way that it's meant to in the hearts of the people? And since we are social beings and sensing beings, when somebody looks at you, if you're hiding something, they can tell. If you think you're better than them, they can tell. But in thinking about that, you are actually losing more than they're losing. And so when we serve, we should think about the fact that our humanity is tied to everybody else's humanity. And as much as I safeguard your humanity and see you as myself, is as much as I will gain from the process. And I hope that we don't sit in our silos and avoid each other, that we get in the field and we struggle together and we make the difference that will give us a more complete delight. Thank you.
Think of sharing what you know.